It's going today.
Yeah.
That's
You know.
what I understand now. And,
Kid home with a stomach bug,
vision-
not too bad,
Oh,
but still,
yeah.
that kind of like, oh, well, okay, that changes things.
Yeah, that's a.
Which is actually why I'm able to be here, because I'm not driving her to lacrosse right now,
Great.
so.
No lacrosse for you.
We'll be done.
They don't want anything.
Well,
This is traditional with
I'm
rubber.
going to get my
This
stick
is
moving
pivot.
parts and
Anyone want anything?
not too much.
Oh, wow.
See how
I
dense
found,
it is?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
when I was on the board, I figured, well, I'm on
That's
the
just
board,
how it is
you know,
right there.
they'll answer all
And
my
then you have
questions.
like a shock pad and
questions,
various
and I
other
said, I
things
just don't have
underneath
time to
it,
get to
and
it.
that's it. You just rake it.
So they're
I love this.
understaffed.
Which one am I supposed to, which one do we like?
I'm gonna put that in my yard.
This great? Great.
Pretty sure it's
Thumbs
the,
up. Floppy and weird, and you have to have 3 inches of,
objection.
is that crumb rubber? This is, yes, these are the microplastics.
No, get it away from me. I don't want to breathe it in.
Imagine this, by the truckload everywhere.
God.
Just imagine.
Oh, boy, show and tell.
I love show and
Bob,
tell.
I need another second. I gotta grab my phone so I can log into my computer. Sorry.
There's no deadlines here tonight.
Yeah.
That's great, because my mother-in-law has just arrived, so.
It's gonna be a
She's
long
stay
meeting.
here all night.
6:30.
Oh, is this recorded?
That was live on air.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this is,
The on-air.
I don't know.
I think this is a Zoom call.
it is,
We've
but.
got a rec thing afterwards if you want to stay for that.
Oh, great. Maybe I will.
It's Zoom for Mike, but is it being recorded?
Yes.
Starting now?
I don't know when she started it.
Oh,
Sarah's gonna do it just in case we lose him so he can.
Better go get that redacted.
I'm gonna ask her to maybe
trim it.
She
trim
will.
it by 30 seconds. Yeah.
She will.
Okay, great.
normally.
Thank you.
Is it recording now though?
That's the question.
It usually has the
I was
little
gonna say it
sign.
doesn't show it.
Yeah.
Usually she won't do it till the meeting starts.
Okay, even better. Even better. It's hard being this classy.
So is Mike gonna, he's not gonna show us his video from the tree stand or
That's right, yes,
wherever he is?
Is Jesse's not coming?
I don't think he wanted to.
Yeah, no, fair.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, that's fair.
He'll be here for the orchard meeting at 6.
Wow, busy night around here.
Yeah. I think Mike asked when this was. I don't know if he's coming or not.
Mike Eads, up
No,
there.
Mike Schwartz.
Oh, Mike.
Loud and clear.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, guys.
What's shaking, bacon?
Just sitting up here in the North Neighbor Woods.
Nice.
Love it.
Just as long as he doesn't start any international incidents by shooting into Canada or anything.
Yeah.
All right, everybody all set?
Yes, sir. Good to go. Thank you. Apologize for the delay.
This is being taped or this is being shown live?
This is, just a Zoom meeting with Mike, and I believe Sarah's gonna start taping once you start the meeting, just in case we lose Mike and he can catch up on whatever he missed.
All right, so
That's the only
I don't
purpose.
need to explain to the public what
So
we
Mike
are
is the audience.
doing.
Mike is your audience.
Okay. Ready, Mike?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay, good. Tonight, 3 items on the official agenda. Turf, fireworks, senior tax. A little bit of background. Denise reached out to me, and I believe she reached out to all of us, including the town manager, the town attorney, and a discussion was held about what we were going to do with regards to our climate action plan and what we do with how we operate as a town, basically putting principles aside or principles in front and adhering to them. And as we all know, we don't live in a perfect world, and sometimes we gain a little, sometimes we go back a step before we make a step forward. But anyways, the idea is that we are trying to develop some chemical protocols, not necessarily chemicals, but products that are used every day that are dangerous for us, and try to eliminate them from our atmosphere, from our water, from our ingestion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining anything more than that, but I'm going to hand it over to Denise who has done a considerable amount of research, and this is her topic for this evening.
Alrighty. Would you like a microphone?
needs this.
Yeah.
Bring it here. All right.
I do too.
So I just sprung this edited, I have two, oh my God. This is like a presser right now. All right, so I sprung a new version, a simplified version of my very long write-up on you last minute. So to keep on track, I'm basically just gonna read it, if that's okay. Because it's probably easier to just read it and get to my points than to just talk about it, because then I'll start wandering. So I'll just do that. All right. Title: Prohibiting Artificial Turf Synthetic Infill in Sustainable Cumberland. So the background on this is I've spent many hours of my free time this year. It's basically become a hobby, researching, educating myself on all of this, as far as artificial turf fields in general, how they've changed since they first came out in the 1960s with AstroTurf, a variety of sources, biased, unbiased, academic journals and such, and how this jives basically, or doesn't, with Cumberland's values, our climate action plan, and the direction we've been going and the direction we hope to go. So, yeah, my opinion in general is that artificial turf fields aren't great, but the infill in particular is the main culprit as far as environmental harm, greenhouse gas emissions, chemicals, health, environmental, human risks. And the infill in particular is the easiest thing to tackle that will solve the most risk and most problems, just right off the bat. So basically, this ordinance that I would like us to consider is based off of the Westport, Connecticut Turf Ordinance. It is very simple. It is strictly prohibiting synthetic infill from turf fields. So anything made of rubber of any type, recycled footwear, anything that is not a naturally occurring substance like coconut husks, rice, sand, cork, anything like that. And it is only applicable to artificial turf fields. If there's construction or some sort of manufacturing happening that requires these materials in some other application, wouldn't apply. This is just for artificial turf fields. So next, why infill in particular? Like I mentioned, it's the single most harmful component within an artificial turf system. And this includes EPDM rubber, which is, there's a sample of this here. You can't really see it, Mike, but it's gross, but it's basically these little pieces of literal microplastics, less than 5 millimeters in diameter, that come by the truckload to fill in this turf here to make it stand upright and to help with impact resistance for players. Banning all synthetic infill and only allowing organic or infill-free options, like this one here, this is an infill-free option, would align also with the growing wave of policies like the EU's ban on all synthetic infill, which takes effect in 2031, which is applicable to all countries in the EU. So what are synthetic infills? They're classified as microplastics less than 5 millimeters, and they contribute to over 90% of turf fields' microplastic pollution, which I think is a pretty crazy statistic. Artificial or synthetic infills also have the highest greenhouse gas emissions of all infill options and pose significant risks to humans, wildlife, and the environment through chemical leaching, accidental ingestion, and VOC off-gassing. There's not a whole lot of studies about this because people are, just starting to get funding to look at this and realizing that it's a problem as we learn more and more about plastic pollution, like daily. So there was a 2017 study that analyzed life cycle energy use and emissions across various infills, and total energy over a life cycle of a turf field, in particular the infills, in general was 5.9 gigajoules, which is mitigated when it's disposed via incineration rather than recycling, which is what happens most of the time. And emissions were 527 ton CO2 equivalents per 10-year life cycle. So the manufacture and maintenance of different infills was the largest determining factor of those emissions. It's the highest for an infill called TPE, followed by EPDM, which is what this is. Additionally, EPDM and out of which, okay, so this statistic was crazy to me because recycled tires are supposed to be like the most horrible. However, when they looked at volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, it showed that recycled EPDM and EPDM and all of them contained leachable VOCs. And additionally, where's my other statistic? It's in here somewhere. As far as, yeah, the VOC, in another, the Magnuson and Mazik study found that organic substances harmful for aquatic environments and our humans were detected in all of them, but they were the highest concentration from EPDM and recycled EPDM. So not as bad as recycled tires as far as straight up cancer goes, but still horrible for the environment. This infill, which is suggested for most applications. So talking about that, talking about the emissions and how that runs contrary to the goal and the climate action plan of reaching net zero and then becoming climate positive and sequestering carbon. The issue with this infill that I see is that this greenhouse gas life cycle of this infill that has to be constantly produced, constantly refilled because it's sloughing off into the environment, people are carrying it around, all of that, that life cycle greenhouse gas, I think, should be considered as a component of Cumberland's annual total emissions, because it's something, if you're bringing it in, it's coming from somewhere. These emissions may not be happening in town, but we are causing them to happen. So the next point is waste generation in general, trying to reduce waste. According to the UN Environmental Program, or UNEP, cumulative global plastic production is expected to reach 34 billion tons by 2050. Artificial turf fields and synthetic infills produce significant non-biodegradable waste and contribute to this crisis, which contradicts the Climate Action Plan's goals for waste reduction and responsible resource use. So banning synthetic infills would prevent a steady stream of microplastic pollution within Cumberland. By contrast, organic infill or infill-free systems emit vastly fewer microplastics, have reduced toxin exposure, and require no replenishment. Also, these systems are more frequently recycled, and they're not new technology. Europe has been installing infill-free fields since 2009, multiple generations worth, and this one here is just the latest iteration of that. Let's see, what else? Talking about environmental and human health risks, the UNEP's Chemicals and Plastics Technical Report talked about, or quote, here's a quote, extensive scientific data on the potential adverse impacts of about 7,000 substances associated with plastics show that more than 3,200 of them have one or more hazardous properties of concern. So these petroleum-based infills contain toxic substances, including flame retardants, UV stabilizers, and PFAS that may be undetectable or improperly quantified with current available testing methods. And as these chemicals degrade, they disperse into air, water, and soil, which pose lasting ecological risks. The global scientific community has only just begun to quantify the damage posed with synthetic infills, with testing protocols that are still complete. And the absence of data does not equate to the absence of harm. Additionally, there's been just a lack of comprehensive research on the health and environmental risks posed by artificial turf infills, despite recognition of concerns over heavy metals, the microplastics that they are made of, PAHs, PFAS, and this is especially true with kids. The EPA has mentioned that children have increased vulnerability to all environmental toxins. So without long-term studies available on the effects of these infills, I recommend we avoid them to minimize potential risks to our community, to the kids and the ecosystem on the whole. So Climate Action Plan, in summary, it emphasizes the goal of being climate positive, environmentally responsible, preserving our landscapes that absorb carbon, which, I mean, turf is still going to be removing natural grass and replacing with something that is not a carbon sink. However, I would make the argument that having an infill that will continuously migrate into the surrounding environment is not conducive to benefiting those green spaces that might surround it, and the water and the soil. And there's a portion of the Climate Action Plan that talks about the brand of sustainable Cumberland, and it's brought up often. There were a lot of quotes in the Climate Action Plan presentation talking about our environmental values as a town, how we are leaders, and basically, like, here's some quotes. Sustainable Cumberland means to us that we, as a result of implementing this plan, have the opportunity to show our uniqueness among communities around the area. We're leading by example. We're looking toward the future past 2030. If the town acknowledges that we want to hold ourselves to a higher standard, we think it would be a great way to set an example. Also talks about educating kids in the school system to integrate sustainability principles so that the youth and future adults of Cumberland are forward-thinking and learning about all the steps we've taken and what they're going to have to do to help make the world a better place. And also that Cumberland is an innovative leader in climate change mitigation. Our Climate Action Plan aims to set us apart as environmentally responsible. We have an opportunity to affirm our commitment to these values by disallowing synthetic infill, which compromises long-term ecological health. The Climate Action Plan states the town or government is committed to the goal of fostering sustainability, including reduction of carbon emissions and energy conservation. This is not a long-term abstract idea. It's become increasingly urgent to mitigate and adapt to climate disruption of the magnitude now predicted by the scientific community. Urgent action is called for at all levels. Additionally, there is emerging legislative policy and trends that have prohibited synthetic infill. This isn't a new thing. Many local governments have already banned crumb rubber, not just tires, but just all crumb rubber infill. Westport, Connecticut did in 2018, which is what I already mentioned. And then some towns are just restricting or banning artificial turf across the board, like Boston and Millbrae, California, and Massachusetts, Sharon, Massachusetts. The U.S. Department of State has also announced that it supports global plastic pollution agreements, mentioning that the health of our communities and our planet's at stake. And now artificial turf infills are now recognized as the largest contributor of microplastics in all of Europe, which led the European Union to ban them starting in 2031, like I mentioned before. So these countries will have about 7 years to transition to purely organic infill or infill-free versions of turf like this one here. So in closing, adopting an ordinance to ban synthetic infill allows us to lead by example, ensuring our practices align with our community's environmental vision and our Climate Action Plan goals. Synthetic infill is neither essential nor consistent with our values. Instead, we can promote sustainable alternatives and reinforce our commitment to a climate-positive future. Thank you very much. And I have questions that Mike had sent me that I need to answer. Let me find them. And if there are any other questions.
While you're looking through that, I must admit to a little bit of ignorance here.
Sure.
The product on the left there, can you show that to me?
Yes. So this is called Pivot. It's made by one of the main turf manufacturers called Ten Kate. They're based in the Netherlands. So this is a shock pad. It's an example of one that goes underneath to provide absorption. So this traditional type of turf field is, this little sample here is, you'll notice it's much longer blades. They're prone to breakage, which will break off and create more microplastics. And then in order to make this stand upright, you pour literal microplastics here about 3 inches high so that they stand up, and also for shock absorption when players fall.
So when you start a turf field, you level the ground or you shape the ground?
Yes, you make it so that the pitch is angled slightly for drainage. I know if you're going to make a good field, you have a really good drainage underneath with gravel.
So there's nothing else that goes on the ground except for this product and then this product? And in the case of this goes right on the ground?
There will be multiple layers underneath. It depends on how they do it, but it won't have a shock pad like that. It'll just have this in order to break someone's fall. And they pack that in. And so imagine this, the size of a football field. And between games and like if someone falls and a lot of this flies everywhere, you have to rake it to make it even so that there's an even surface for falls to land on the rubber. And then as it gets windy, as it rains, if there's like flooding, these basically will get carried off, and then you'll have to replenish them.
So you're bringing more of the crumb rubber in over
Right.
the years. Is
And
that
if
what
you
you're
choose to have something like this, you can't not have an infill. And in New England, organic infills freeze, and so that's not really an option here unless you have an indoor field. So you're using microplastic infill so that it isn't frozen during your shoulder seasons of spring and fall. And when you snow blow it also, if you needed to for some reason, these will fly off everywhere as well.
And they do snow blowing.
Yeah.
I've seen them do it. USM gets early season play
Wow.
So
in the fields. Yeah.
yeah, so this is what that is, and it comes in by the truckload. And
No, I'm familiar with EPDM, we,
Yeah.
you know, on roofing applications
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
So Mike's question, so the cost difference, Mike asked, what's the cost difference to go away from rubberized material and plastics? So that's actually something really cool in my research. And that was also corroborated with what Jesse and I have been talking about, because he's the chair of the turf committee for the school project. He's also the chair of the sustainability committee, and he's part of the LCC. So we were talking about this and looking at cost, and in general, based on the quotes he's looked at, this version of a field, a football field, versus this one, the infill-free version, is $60,000 more expensive. But you don't have to buy infill. You don't have to continuously buy it to replenish. Also, this is a heavier face weight, which is like basically the bulk of the product. And it's also more durable because it is more compact and denser. So this will last, this has a 12-year manufacturer warranty, whereas this one has 8. So you get 50% more time out of it. And it also requires far less maintenance. You don't have to run machines to take infill, disinfect it, clean it, wash it. Requires no herbicides because this isn't growing moss and mold on it, like happens sometimes, because this will sometimes block drainage holes, and so you'll get standing water, and then things will grow, and you'll have to also hose it down in the summer because this gets very hot. So less chemicals, less maintenance. So over the life of the product, infill-free is cheaper. So that's the cost side at least. So this ordinance wouldn't put any financial strain on a person who would need to pick an alternative.
Aside from the school, how does this benefit the greater community?
I don't think it's going to be like my hometown of San Diego where, you know, it's so much drought that you're having to rip up your lawn for turf, but it's like, I don't know what it's going to be like a decade from now when the climate's warming, if people are going to decide that they have issues with their yards and they want to put in artificial turf. They might. We don't have anything right now to prohibit that. So I'm wanting us to kind of plan ahead for what is possible and get the microplastics out of the equation in advance.
Is this used in golf courses?
It could be. You talk about like if Valhalla wants to swap out their fields for artificial turf. I mean, yeah, they have a golf version. This one here is a version for sports at schools. So it's like a mix of different, it's like an all-purpose essentially because you have multiple sports playing on it. So this won't be perfect for field hockey or perfect for anyone, but it's good enough for everyone. But golf is going to have a much lower pile.
Going across Wind Road from Cumberland to Falmouth, there's a grass tennis court.
Mm-hmm.
Is that real or is that artificial?
That's real.
It is real grass.
You mean at Falmouth Country Club?
Yes.
The pickleball courts, yeah, that's just amazing grass. It's gorgeous.
But it is real.
Grass, yeah, it's grass.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
It's expensive grass.
That's really nice grass.
Well taken care of.
So this would also, if, not just outdoor fields, but if somebody decided to build something akin to like the main athletic complex down in Portland, up here, you know, indoor turf field,
Yeah.
Sports center kind of thing, then this would also be applicable then,
Right.
where they'd have to put a infill free or organic, because they could do organic, because they won't have,
Because it won't freeze.
yeah, it won't
Yeah.
freeze, they won't have the rain on it,
Right.
et cetera.
They
It
could
would just
do
mean
that.
that they're not walking out with microplastics
Yep.
in their feet, in their shoes, and their
This too,
shirts and shorts and.
this is recommended, infill free is recommended for in indoor facilities because they're really concerned with like cleanliness and like having stuff all over the place. So this is well suited for indoor as well. So outside of the school project, it's like, what if Friends, I mean, I doubt Friends School would do it, but you know, there are multiple other schools. There's daycares, you know, in town. Somebody might want to install a dog run because there's artificial dog turf for your dogs to go to the bathroom on. So there's a lot of different applications, not necessarily field, like soccer field scale, but yeah, there's lots of different ways people could use this in town. And yeah.
Could I ask a follow-up on that?
Yeah.
So thinking about that, and I had Ben McCall.
Yeah.
Just kind of, first of all, he thinks this is perfectly legitimate.
Okay.
If you wanted to take this approach, I'll bring this over here. Yeah, the town has the full right in order, if they want to regulate this, they have every right to do that. Westport's ordinance looks fine to him. His questions were, yeah, if someone wanted to, do their dog run, would this apply, would this apply to that? And then we would just have to say, okay, for all of that,
Yeah.
you just have to establish a permitting authority and just say, if you want to do that, and it's about outreach and education, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, like Westport's doesn't matter who you are. It's like, it's private, it's commercial, it's public, none of it anywhere. Like you can have organic infills or you can have no infill. And if someone wanted to go with like a lower cost one like this, that's fine. You would just need to fill it with organic infill, which is usually a mix of sand, coconut husks, and some other cork and other random things.
I gotta tell you that I'm appalled at the idea of pouring this on the ground or a
I know.
artificial anything. And then knowing that it's subject to wind, snow, rain, washing away, whatever the product is. I much more think that this is a more stable product without knowing what it's made of, but adding something
Yeah.
to me is, I don't think you need to spend a lot more time trying to convince me.
Okay.
Yeah, and you do have, I mean, you've got that at least twice a year maintenance that you do have to take. There's almost like if you've gone to a hockey game and seen a Zamboni, it's like a mini Zamboni that they drive, and it just kind of, it kind of
Spreads out.
redistributes it, balances it, and sets the level. And yeah, we would, like in Cape Elizabeth, we would pay Northeast Turf to come up twice a year to condition the field, and make sure it's ready for play. And then,
Do you know roughly how much that was?
I think it's like $15K a year. is what we were
15K a
paying.
year?
Yeah, I think that's what we were paying. The first year was free because we bought the turf from them, and then
First one's free.
then after that it was just, and it happened with the turf before, so we would pay them before with that turf to come in twice a year. So they come before the fall season, and then come before the spring season when it was lacrosse season. So they would do all that work there. We had we do have the slit blade, as they call it, and
Yeah.
and that's what they had for technology at the time. We didn't have this available, but yeah, you do go through your infill. It's just they have to replenish it.
Mike, did you follow all of this?
I did. I really appreciate everything you've done, Denise.
Thanks.
Matt, did you say you've run this by the town attorney?
Yes, sir, I did. And
So-
he thought it was the town has the ability to regulate on the infill side of it.
Okay, because my worry's been since I spoke to Denise last week was, as you know, the CMP took on the state, who passed the law after they were permitted, and they took it all the way up to Supreme Court. Supreme Court ruled you can't, basically you can't pass a law after something's already been approved. And that's what I was worried about. That's what we're doing here. I'm with Bob on this. You don't have to do any more convincing me. I was just worried about the legality of it, that's all.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if it's helpful to the council and the committee, in this case, you're not, I guess you could say you're not prohibiting turf.
Right.
It's just, it's the infill, so you have the ability to define what's allowable. And so you're not really changing the game, the rules of the game. You're just saying if you are gonna play in the game, you need to have the pieces that meet the requirements of what the town's going to allow. So you're not kind of you're not going out of bounds, I guess, pardon the pun, because this is athletic field, but we're not going out of bounds by considering this as a regulation approach. So, yeah.
Great points, Matt. I really do appreciate it. And what is the school's position on this? Do we know?
Yeah, so there's no official opinion, but I've been talking to a lot of people, including multiple school board members, and generally there's not a whole lot of negative feedback. I don't want to go into the school conversation too much because they're not here to talk about it themselves, but yeah, the committee is comprised of mostly athletics, and they want what they're used to. They're used to Falmouth and Capes Field, which is rubber infill on top of standard grass, not grass, turf carpet, whatever. And these fields here, like they're all over Europe. They have them in the South. There's Arkansas, Texas, and Alabama. There's schools down here that have it. Jesse recently got an email back from a coach at the Arkansas school because he had asked how it is, and the coach said the students are raving about it. They love it. The maintenance is negligible, and it's a good product. It's sturdy. It's safe. So in the South, they have more experience with it. It's, like I said, it's all over Europe. I looked to see if there's an example of a similar climate, because the South is different from here, obviously. And they have the previous generation of this installed in Norway and also Ukraine. And they've had it for years. It's worked out well. So this is the newest generation. So again, this has been around since 2009 in Europe. It's just now taking hold in the US because we're so far behind environmentally. But yeah, it's something that has been like a collaboration between us and members of the school board to make sure we're doing something that is okay with everyone, basically. Like, this isn't creating conflict. It's something that Jesse and I have kind of talked about together, and kind of arrived at this thing where, you can still have a field, but it's going to be the safest possible for people and the environment, without breaking the budget also. It's kind of like, can't really find anything bad about it other than that it's just unfamiliar material. But I think they were thinking of sending down an athlete or a coach perhaps to go visit one of these fields to try it out, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But so right now, the turf committee decided that they're going to be recommending both options to the building committee on the 21st. So there's two paths essentially. So they'll offer this example up and this one, and then it'll go on to the school board to discuss and vote. But yeah, this ordinance, the way Matt explained it to me, it would be through the entire process, and if it passes the council, it would be done before the end of the year. So it wouldn't derail the school build plans whatsoever. It wouldn't derail RFPs. They'd be able to follow their existing timeline without any impact. And the only thing with that is they would have to pick this right here. This is the only infill-free option that you can get in the U.S., and it's done by the company that's been doing it for years. They're Tenkate, and their vendor in the U.S. is called Geosurfaces. So yeah, it would basically be that. That's what they'd have to pick. So yeah, long way to answer your
thank you very-
question that there's, yeah, it seems amicable to everybody.
Thank you, Bob. I'm all set on it.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to, the ordinance committee to advance this to the full council for discussion, and from there to be sent to the planning board and then back to the council. So, since Denise is the originator of the topic, that leaves you as the motion maker.
Well, so made.
What do you say? So moved. All right, the motion's been made
So
to
moved.
forward the proposed ordinance on turf infill products to the full council for their review. I will call for a vote.
Mr. Chairman, would the motion be made by Councilor Thorson and seconded by
No.
Councilor Eads, or,
Motion made by Eads.
Okay, would you like to have a
Second.
second? Thank you.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Just want to make sure. the
I skipped that. I
historic
just
record's
skipped that
correct.
part.
it was implied.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you, sir. Thanks,
Cool.
Denise.
So will this be on the agenda for the 25th then? Cool. Sweet. Visual aids are helpful, huh?
Very helpful.
You're gonna hold on to those, right?
I think I have to give them back to Jesse tonight because he's going to use it for the turf meeting, but I'll get it
Bring
back for the
yeah, I
council
think
meeting.
Those visual aids are really helpful.
It's super helpful. I'm like,
Yeah.
is this serious right now?
Do you have any idea on how many pounds, or probably more like tons, of
Well-
that? No, because that
Yeah.
covers what?
I mean, this
3
is
square inches?
this
Unless
is
you use tons of
basically
that.
Yeah,
yeah, what it is a little bit bigger. So
and you know,
I'd
3
say
inches
like
high. That's
5
not
by
even,
5
3 inches
times
high,
divided
like,
by a
for-
friggin' football field's area.
yeah, a traditional
I
football
don't know.
field, it's
A
X
lot.
number of tons in the beginning, and
Yeah.
then, you know, on average,
Yeah.
you gotta replace
As much as
X
you
number
need.
of
Yeah.
tons a year.
I'll ask Jesse. He was gonna try to do math and figure it out, but I mean, he was saying like dump truck loads
Yeah.
and dump truck loads, but he didn't want to exaggerate, so he was gonna try to find the exact figure.
And then the overhead from either the turf maintenance people or the folks that, the maintenance committee, right, or the maintenance team
Mm-hmm.
at the school that are gonna have to be taking care of that versus this is less
Right.
maintenance, right?
All
So
you have to do
they're-
is rake it.
Because they're not
and
gonna, they're not gonna do it if you have, if I may, Mr. Chairman, sorry. Yeah, the school staff doesn't do it. It's, you ask
You
them to do it.
contract it
I mean,
out.
you can do it, you can buy the equipment,
Yeah.
but now you've got another piece that you've got to maintain, so if you're gonna pay, let's say, 40 grand or 25 to 40 grand for this unit, you gotta maintain it, it could break down, it ages out, train your people to do it, or you pay them 10K a year to do it, and
And 10K every year, you
Yep.
know, over, versus $60,000 for something that lasts 50% longer.
The
That-
other
that
piece,
may be-
Bob,
Versus
yeah.
12.
because you were, I know we've like gone past this, but just want to mention.
I've-
So this last like
Sorry.
12 years, yeah. So by the time this needs replacing, they will most likely have a plant-based option available. And that's the other thing to keep in mind as well. So, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Moving right along.
Moving right along, because we have a number of things to consider here.
Okay.
I'm looking for my fireworks.
My God. Now
Now that we've created some fireworks, or potential fireworks,
It's here.
Mr. Chairman, if it would be helpful at all, Mr. Chairman, the reason why we asked to just bring this back, I wanted to make sure before I came back to go into the council, I just want to confirm that the committee, there were a couple of proposed changes at the last one, which was to drop July 5th and have the noontime start versus the 10 a.m. start. And then there was some discussion regarding a couple of the other days that were there, the 3rd, and then, and July 3rd as well. So just wanted to make sure that the committee, and there wasn't a motion at the last meeting, so wanted to make sure that
all right.
the committee had firm ground.
Is there any printed material for this
It's
tonight?
Yep.
just this one page, which is basically the minutes of what we had talked about.
It- oh,
Oh, fireworks.
all right, I can't, could not find it. All right. Now, I have something in front of me, Matt, on.
Sir,
I-
tried to buy you some time.
All right, so the, following on, Mike, with the discussion we had a month or so ago, we decided we would drop a couple days. We would change some of the timing. And Matt, would you lay out to me again what those changes are?
So we're looking at, right now, it's the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th of July are the days that are allowed, and as well as December 31st and January 1st. And they have an allowable start time at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
And it would go until, to 12, I think it was
Midnight.
midnight, yeah, to 12 midnight. So just looking to see if you wanted to drop the 3rd and the 5th, and then start at, and Councilor Yates had thought about either possibly 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. and then to 12:30 on the major days, or if you wanted to drop those days and have a noon time start on those days. So just wanted to see what the final
I would,
impulse was.
I'd be interested in dropping the 2 days, but I would think that I might allow 24 hours on the 4th.
May I please ask a question?
Visibility, like, what can you see in the sky when you put off a firework at noon?
Yeah, it's not just skyrockets and stuff that's allowed by the ordinance. Tickets,
Okay.
also firecrackers.
Oh, it's the crackers. Okay, got it.
You have to be a little boy to understand this story.
Okay, no, I
A
no,
degenerate little boy,
no, I understood.
of which I was once.
Understood. Okay, okay.
No, but
Thank you.
never mind.
That's generally, what you'll hear during the day. It'll be firecrackers or the
Yep.
more the loud ones versus at
The
night,
big-
those, and bottle rockets are fun to shoot off during the day too, so.
Hey,
Shoot 'em at each other.
sounds like a fun thing for us to
Yeah.
all do together.
Yeah,
Fire department business.
yep, they do.
So I remember at the last meeting, I suggested just only having the 4th and having New Year's Eve into New Year's for a bit, like not the whole New Year's, but I know Mike had objected and I think didn't like the idea of only having the 4th, one at a day on either end. One day. I'm not sure if that's still the case, Mike, or if I'm misremembering, but
Yeah, you are correct, Denise, and I would like to see the 3rd and the 4th, not the 5th.
okay.
And as far as the hours, I can live with whatever you guys come up with the consensus as well.
The 3rd and the 4th, December 31st, January 1st. New Year's Eve typically is December 31st. So,
Always, yes.
Typically, yes.
wow, I feel the love here.
Real smart people we've got in the government.
Yeah, I can go to Washington.
And dude,
Probably be a
Race to the
cabinet
White House.
probably be a cabinet secretary.
You're overqualified,
All
Mr.
right,
Chairman.
so, how does, December 31st to noon on the 1st?
When December, just all of December 31st?
It's 10 a.m. We'll start at 10 a.m. I mean, on some level, this is, we're not gonna run around with the fireworks police. You start at 9:30.
I think most people follow laws, just because they're good people. So, I mean, if it's changed in the ordinance and you post it and people see it, I mean, I think they're gonna mostly follow it, right? What's your view on humanity?
You know I walk my dogs without any leashes.
Yeah, that's right.
We had a great time terrorizing the town office this afternoon.
Of course,
I have more chickens than are allowed by ordinance.
more than 6?
Uh,
I think it's 6, right?
One lives in a tree, so.
10 a.m., Mike, on New Year's Eve? To,
Yes, sir.
Noontime on New Year's Day.
Yes, sir.
And on the 3rd, we allow the 3rd, 10 a.m. to midnight, and 10 a.m. to midnight on the 4th.
I can live with that, Bob. Thank you.
That seems like,
Denise, you all right with that?
no, but, I mean,
You want an outright ban.
no, I never said that.
We
No,
know
I've
that.
always
We-
only
we-
said
we know
4th,
that.
New Year's Eve and New Year's. I think 10 a.m. to midnight on the day before is a little much.
We erased a whole day.
Uh-huh. And
After Mike and I don't get reelected, you can revisit this.
we can revisit it when we bring it to the council. How about that? Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Noon on the 5th?
No 5th.
No 5th.
Sorry, noon on New Year's Day?
So it's from 10 a.m. on New Year's Eve to noon on New Year's Day, and then the 3rd and 4th are 10 to midnight.
26 hours. Andrew, you have
You need
any
'em?
thoughts?
As somebody that had a nervous dog, for somebody that had a nervous dog for 10 years or so, fireworks weren't the greatest thing. So I'm more inclined to prefer, the 4th, New Year's Day, and whatever the other holiday, New Year's Eve kind of thing, as opposed to the day before. I think it's good to get the day after. I think that's, if you don't get it out of your system on the 4th, wait till next year. But I also see, progress of moving forward towards what I want, if that's what it is better than not moving forward at all.
I'm not at the point for a total ban.
Oh, I'm not saying
You know,
it's
I
just a
can-
total
No one
ban.
is talking
Well,
about a
no, but I-
total ban.
But I understand, people that have farm animals, people that have
Yeah,
dogs, people who have other issues, it can be very disruptive to their life.
That'd still put us, from my extremely limited knowledge, more permissive than our surrounding neighbors, right?
We're more in line now.
But everybody else is the day of holiday, pretty much, right? New Year's Eve, 4th, and New Year's Day. Like,
I don't think there's
is
anybody.
anybody
has a
that does on the
holiday.
3rd, or so we would still be more, even with the more restricted, would still be more.
liberal?
Yes.
I mean that in
No, yeah, it's more liberal policy, more open, more, yeah. Small L.
I'm looking in the minutes at the last meeting, and it said Mike would like more restrictions on the time allowed, like 4 to 10, and then noon on the major days. So does that mean that you'd be comfortable, Mike, on the 3rd, having it be from 4 to 10 instead of 10 a.m. to midnight?
As I said, Denise, whatever you and Bob and Andrew and Ted, can come up with it for a time, I can live with the
Okay.
time. That's not, as long as they get to use them, and I can live with whatever you guys come with for a consensus.
I think I'd feel better with the 3rd being more limited, more like toward that evening, because the 10 to midnight 2 days in a row is part of the problem that we've heard from, the few emails from the community that we've gotten about service dogs and having to go out of town with family, say in a hotel, because someone's having a really hard time for days in a row. So I don't know if maybe it's like evening hours on the 3rd, maybe, because it's leading into the 4th, and then you have that full day on the 4th, if that would be agreeable to you.
When you say full day, do you mean 24 hours full day, or do you mean?
Well, 10 to midnight, that's kind of
Okay.
like full day,
Fine.
because you're starting right after breakfast, so. Do you have any thoughts?
I think 4 p.m. on the 3rd, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. is very reasonable, especially for those families that do have to leave. It's like they can still get a lot of their day in on the 3rd, and then, I mean, they basically have to come back on the 5th, right? But I think if we go for something that's a little bit later in the afternoon, that will also help mitigate the larger problem that day, right? Like, it'll just be, you know, maybe it'll only be 10 boys with their little pocket rockets or whatever the hell they're called.
Not
Bottle rockets.
Bottle rockets.
Oh my God.
Strike that from the recording.
I mean,
Did not make the notes.
thank goodness. I mean, it's farm animals. I think it's a reasonable compromise, and it allows the kiddos in our community that want to be lighting those to have that lovely childhood experience, and it's also supporting the people with farm animals, anyone that has PTSD or anything that could be triggering or any kind of trauma as a result of hearing.
Or little kids that need
Yeah,
to
little kids
go down
or
to nap or
dogs
bed
or
or.
guinea pigs
you
or
know.
whatever. But this seems more reasonable, I think, to go on a shorter window on the 3rd than 10 a.m. to midnight, which I think is excessive for the 3rd. I think the 4th, yeah, go for it. Knock yourself out. And then 6 months later, you've got New Year's and New Year's Eve, and it'll be darker, and you'll get more bang for your buck then.
Firework puns. Dang.
Okay,
We got him.
make the motion, Denise.
All right.
Counselor Thorson, if it would be helpful at all, I can try to tee that up for you.
I wrote it down.
Oh, you did? Okay,
So
awesome.
let's see if we could do this. I move to amend the, wait, what are we doing?
We're amending the
Got it.
fireworks ordinance.
Yes, okay. I move to amend the fireworks ordinance to, let's see, July 3rd from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Let's go midnight, please.
Midnight? Okay, okay. Sorry. The 3rd from 4 p.m. to midnight, the 4th from 10 a.m. to midnight, New Year's Eve from 10 a.m. to noon on New Year's Day.
Second,
And to remove the 5th altogether of July.
Was that a second, Mike?
yes, sir.
Any discussion on the motion?
Just that it was awful.
Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Motion carries to the council's, full council's agenda.
Are you in favor or opposed?
Yeah, I'm also not a voting member of the ordinance though, so.
Okay, good.
I thought you were
You
looking for
will
Mike.
be.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I was trying to
Okay.
duck out of the way so you could see him.
Nope, thank you. We're good.
We have like 6 minutes, 8 minutes till, or no, is it 6:30?
I think we're at a 6:30 meeting.
All right, we have time then.
All right,
Senior tax.
now the big one. Senior tax. I do have paperwork for that. So, last year, the legislature approved the bill that was drafted by this council, predominantly by Mark Seacrest, with the help of Steve Moriarty, who forwarded to the legislative body, who did vote on it, and without the governor's signature, it became law 90 days hence. And now it is up to us to take that and convert that into language where the citizens of the town can come forward and apply for tax relief. And what this does, and I will let Jen and Matt flush this out, but it's available for those 70 years or older. It is a mechanism which freezes your tax at that time of application so that any increases are not, you're not liable for. The flip side of that is that there is a lien placed upon your home for that amount. So if your taxes go up $300 in that first year, your lien on your property is $300. It's not does not gain interest, it's a flat cost, correct?
Nope, it gains interest.
To be paid back
Yep,
to the town
yep,
plus
to-
interest.
Yep,
Plus
at the
interest.
rate set each year, as you did back in August when the council set the tax interest rate for delinquent taxes. You would just use that year's interest rate as established by the council, not to exceed the amount as set by the legislature. So this year, for instance, the council set 4% for delinquent taxes. So if a person was in this and the property, and they deferred those taxes and it went to lien, that would be accumulating at 4% per year going forward.
That $300.
That $300.
If the following year, we said we wanted 5%, and the tax increase was $200, that $200 would increase by 5%.
At 5%. Until paid back annually.
So it could be, the assessor could be pulling his hair out at the end of this thing.
Collection, yeah, mostly the clerk and the collector.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, administratively, we just have to, I guess I don't think we would find an overwhelming subscription to this. So we could manage it within, spreadsheets, and just on an annual basis, you would do that, and you would have to manage it similar to other liens that the town currently has, similar to the neighborhood across the way where the town has silent second mortgages in the
Right.
affordable housing complex, and we just manage and maintain those records to see what their status at. So if they discharge it, then we make sure that gets discharged and attended to. So it'd be the similar process.
So, can I ask another question?
Sure.
26-4, under the criteria for participation, and this is our current program, correct?
This is the proposed ordinance that came from,
This is the proposed
yes, ma'am.
ordinance.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, exactly.
So everything's new.
Everything's new.
Okay.
But in our current program, we have a current stabilization program.
Yes, it's very comparable. So 70 years, and I think it's 10 years of
Homestead.
yeah,
And this is
homestead.
20.
This is for 20.
And that's 20, and at some point, we also, and I don't know if this is part of tonight's dialogue, but wanted to talk about maybe lowering the age to 65, right? Okay. My question is on the criteria, item E, the household income of the taxpayer does not exceed 250% of the federal poverty level. So that means that if I'm understanding correctly, you're living in like a very, very high, you're living in like a $5 million house, that's the assessed value? Or is it
That
the
income,
or-
yeah, it's income.
Okay, the
Yeah, it's
income,
means, it's means-based.
So you are not eligible
Yeah.
for the program if you are a
If your,
millionaire.
if your income is, yeah, if your
Okay.
income is.
If
Now,
your income versus your wealth.
yeah, versus assets. Like if you had,
Okay,
if
yep.
you had savings of a gazillion dollars, but
Right.
your income was only less than 250%, then you could actually qualify.
And so your income would like include your,
We'd-
would that include like your?
You look at their federal return and look at their adjusted
okay,
gross income.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So there are people who are land wealthy,
House rich, cash poor.
but may have,
Yeah.
and so I don't think we want to be in the position of taking their lands away and say, oh, sell a piece of your land off to pay your taxes. I think that's not what we were talking
So,
about.
sort of going off of your thing, the federal poverty level is just the straight across the board national level, or is it like CPI where it's, tailored to this specific area, a more regional number? Because those might be, I have no idea if they are, but they might be vastly different.
You can establish that here through your ordinance. So if you decide that you want to use something locally versus like the AMI for Cumberland County, or Greater Portland Metro region, then you could use that number. Or if you wanted to use the federal poverty level, actually it would be a lower number because, just because it factors in, 50 states.
Right.
But if you wanted to say, we want something more locally established, you could say, well, it can't be less than, you may have to look at that and say, okay, maybe it should be, can't exceed, let's say, 40% of AMI as established by Cumberland County MSA. And so you could do this, similar to what you do with your GA, like your general assistance standards. So you could adopt that if you wanted to and use that as your qualifying standard.
I really like that idea. I don't know, is there a downside to making it kind of based on local criteria?
Nope, it's a local ordinance, so,
Yeah.
so really the yellow areas there are what, are kind of what's in play. It's like, okay, would the council and the committee like to do, establish this standard, so like the 20 consecutive years, for instance, do you want it to be 20, or do you want it to be 10?
Right.
Similar as you have, or have that in alignment with your, current program. And then if you wanted to, do you want it to be 70 years old, or do you want it to be 65 years old? So you can decide how you want to set that.
I feel like we could be more flexible with that because, like you said, there's not going to be a whole lot of people that want to put a lien on their home paying interest. So that, like, why not decrease it a bit and make it 10 years and make it 65? So,
As part of the homestead exemption, and just remind me,
The interest.
that's a certain, it's like over half of the 365 days of the year, right? Like, so,
Yeah,
sorry, Mike, I was trying to, establish that this isn't directed to like the snowbirds, right? Who are spending, more of their time in Florida and then are getting a property tax break in Cumberland, right? Like,
Yeah,
no offense to people that do that,
Yeah, you'd want to have the eligible homestead, so that's a qualifying standard. So to do that, you have to be a resident of the state of Maine, you have to declare that that's your primary residence, and you have to swear that, basically, you have to swear that that's what you said is the truth. And then you can prove that pretty quick.
Yep.
Talk with the town clerk and confirm that they're a registered voter in your town. You can look at, it's funny because, Maine and Florida are, there's a pipeline, right, between the two states. And I've had over 25, 30 years of doing this, I've had multiple conversations with either Maine Revenue Services or Florida Department of Revenue where they're confirming that someone has, if they're living in this town or that town, and then, because Florida's homestead exemption is substantial.
Yep.
And if they find that you're trying to double dip, or you're getting it down there and you don't qualify, then they go after you
Got it.
significantly. And we're a little bit more forgiving. They're not. So, but
Forgiving people.
basically you try to confirm that.
Cool.
and this income list this is the assistance income list, because I know you do not declare VA disability on your federal tax return, for example, that's untaxed income.
Right,
So this
yep.
is those standard, basically the same requirements as general assistance.
In many ways, yeah, similar, because you want to look at all potential sources of revenue. So we would sit out there and be like, okay, what's your AGI? If and many people who may qualify for this aren't filing federal taxes. So if you do that, then you're looking at what's your overall household income, and that would be of all forms, similar to general assistance qualifier, where you say, well, I know Junior's living with you. What does Junior make per year, and what is he contributing to the household expense? So
if I did the math right and got the right number, 250% of the federal poverty is like 51,000 or so. It's 20,440 for two people. And then, changes, 1, 4, and all, so that'd be an income of 51K. It's like 51,100 or something like that.
I mean, if you're a mostly entirely disabled veteran, two-veteran household, like, you're approaching that, just based on that, which, yeah, I don't know.
I think it'd be worth
For Maine
looking
and
into
our cost of living seems, that's a
the
seems a
difference
little
between
low.
that and what it is in Cumberland or Greater Portland
Yeah.
kind of thing. Just, I think it would be good just to have those numbers to see which one, and not just now, but sort of historically, because the 2024 numbers might be great one way, but historically, they might really be better suited for what we want longer term.
Yeah, because like the entire like south of the U.S. brings down that federal level quite a bit, and then you have Maine that's like just astronomically higher cost of living. So yeah, I'd be interested to see the difference between those two things. You guys have like your shirt's a brighter version of his shirt. I like
I'm
it.
not going to continue on that, where that commentary
All
could
this
go.
flannel, I love it. It's getting there. We're getting there.
For the confidentiality, how would that
Where's that?
work? 26-1-6, page 5. So it says that, this wouldn't be announced that, property A is doing this program, but you would see liens on it. And then you would just see taxes paid, in full, whatever the tax amount is, kind of thing. But then it would just be, this property has a lien in 2024, then 25, then 26, then 27, 28, kind of thing. It would be one of those, like, it's obvious, but not.
The confidentiality
Public?
part, I think, is saying that it wouldn't be approved in an open council session. It's executive session. It's like the public needs to go away, and then you discuss that person's situation, and then you approve it, right? Is that what it says here?
Well,
Executive session?
if they file,
It wouldn't show up in the town report,
right, well,
so-and-so.
Put it on the town's website for
It'll do it.
taxes.
Yeah.
Like, how does that?
If I'm reading this right in the confidentiality piece, is that if it's on an application and we keep any piece or write down any information about their income.
income or financial,
Okay,
that,
then
that's not public record.
those applications
Okay.
are not public.
Yeah, similar to what we do now with the
General
senior
assistance.
property tax relief program, where they come in, we figure out that they qualify, there you go, take that home with you, we don't really
Okay.
want to do anything more with that. In this case, the lien is public information, so it's saying, okay,
Right.
we're recording that, property A owned by Mr. and Mrs. Smith has a lien of $300 out there, so all the world knows that is there, and it's, but as far as what they had to show us to qualify is their private and personal info, and that's kept confidential, versus majority plus of any other information that comes into the town is open and subject to freedom of access. So that's why we give them back their info when they file for their regular senior program, or, but like anything, any other document that comes into the town is really open to discovery, and the public has a right to see it if they want. In this case, it provides an exemption for them to say, you can see everything, but you can't see this.
Right, right.
And, sorry, go ahead, Dick.
No, is your
It's a
question-
different thing.
I have
It's a
a
different
okay.
question, so.
Then I will ask my question, because I had asked it and I can't remember, and I'm afraid that it's slightly complicated. Okay, so, Mr. Former Tax Assessor Matthew Sturgis, when you have a second, I have a question for you.
I'm listening.
Okay, so we passed this ordinance this year, and someone takes advantage of it based on the current assessed value of their property. We have a reval, and the assessed value of their property goes up by $300,000. What does that mean year over year for this program? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Ultimately, it doesn't mean anything, because it's not value determinant, it's tax amount determinant. So that property, let's say that a revaluation gets implemented, the property goes up by $300,000, but their tax bill stays the same, or it goes down, they can decide that it's on a year-by-year basis, because it's the tax bill, not the taxable valuation that is being stabilized.
Okay.
So let's say that their tax bill pre-reval was $1,000, post-reval, it's $1,100. They could still keep it at that $1,000 and put the lien on the $100 increase. Or, bless you, if you, the revaluation comes into play, the tax bill the year before is $1,000, reval comes into play, their tax bill drops to, let's say, $700. Well, at that point, they could say, well, I'm not gonna file this year, because my tax bill just dropped $300. And the following year, though, let's say the town comes up with some new bonded indebtedness, for instance, that might
School
happen.
project comes
School
on board.
project comes
Project comes
on board.
online. Okay.
And the tax bill goes from $700 to, say, it's forecast to be $1,100, they can reestablish their baseline at $7.
Okay.
And then they can then they can freeze that there, or stabilize it there, and then take the lien on the $400 increase. And so they've kind of reestablished their baseline. Or if that following year, let's say their value goes up, or their tax bill goes from $1,000 to $2,000.
Yep.
They're still stabilized at $1,000, but the lien's gonna be, and they enroll, their lien's gonna be $1,000.
Okay.
So they can maintain that stability there, year over year, revaluations or no.
It wouldn't seem to make any sense if, once you take advantage of this program, to ever drop out of it, because you know your tax bill is going to go up, and as long as you meet the criteria, once you got a lien on a house, you got a lien on your house.
Yeah.
It's, your heirs or somebody may complain that you didn't leave me much, son.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could have it. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and, I mean, it may prove to be popular, it may just be, it's a useful tool for those who may want to use it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard telling. I know that there's currently a program out there at the state level that you can defer your property taxes, like, completely. And the state would pay that, and then when the property changes hands, then the state reimburses, basically, the state gets reimbursed the sale of your property, or the proceeds from that, whatever the difference is between A and B. It's very similar to this here, but it's on a smaller scale.
Okay.
And then you may also find if a person, because the repayment takes place if the person.
Transfer of the
Yeah, they transfer the property, be it by death or what have you. There's also other areas that may be exempt from that. So if it went from Mr. Smith to Mrs. Smith, and they were, then that's okay. But if it went from Mr. and Mrs. Smith to their child, then they have to pay that back.
Right, okay.
And then it could also come into a negotiating tool. If I was selling my house to the Joneses and I was in this program, I could use that as negotiating. Well, yeah, this is all well and fine, but I'll sell you my house, but you have to pay off all these liens as part of the deal. And you could do that too, similar to like tree growth, for instance. If like a person sells a property that's enrolled in tree growth, and they're like, well, I want to withdraw it. Well, the new owner is like, well, you can do that, but you're going to pay to withdraw that.
Right.
Tree growth?
Yeah, it's like, there's like, yeah,
Pay
there's
the
like.
back taxes that
yeah.
you got the benefit for having it in
Withdrawal
tree
penalty,
growth,
yeah.
so that you could subdivide it into.
There's like, it's more assessing stuff. There's like. you got
Look, his eyes line up.
There's basically there's special class, there's like very limited classifications that you can actually enroll your property in for a reduced valuation. Tree growth's one of them, but you have to have like 10 acres, and you have to have a forest management plan, have to swear that you're gonna do that, but then it's really for forest management, but you get a reduced acreage. Instead of paying $3,000 an acre
Okay.
on your side yard, and 10 acres, it's like $350 if it's mixed growth per acre. So it's a substantial reduction, but there's a substantial withdrawal penalty when you want to get out of it. So you get tree growth, open space, working waterfront are all three different current use classifications that are allowed to enroll in that type of a program at the state. So this is similar to that, but it's a very limited window within which you can do that.
Somebody expressed a desire to change the age. Would you like to tell us why?
I wasn't, when did this come up? This-
Scott Jordan brought it up.
That's right.
Ah,
He
Scott
brought it
Jordan
up
brought it up.
because
And
of
that's related to the other
aligning
one
with
that I
retirement
said.
age.
Yeah, it's,
Retirement age, I think that's like 85.
No, it's like 67 if you want to get your full benefit.
I think I'm closing in on 85 myself.
That's your problem. We're talking about legally retirement age for taking your retirement.
yeah, there were
Security and
There
stuff.
were two questions on that as well. It was 65 for the current property tax reimbursement program. Right now it's 70, and the question was if you want to reduce that to 65 and look at that. And what I do, if it's helpful to the committee at all, I looked at our most recent census number, and I think there's like 350 more people potentially that may qualify. They also may not qualify, but that would increase that amount by about 350. So it could be, it comes down to budgetary question. How much
So-
do you want to fund that program with?
Do we have, it might be a bit of a lift to figure the answer out, but do we have a rough idea on sort of the budgetarily, the worst case scenario, if we lower that age and all eligible people take advantage of it, what does that mean to the overall budget? And sort of, I know it's, with this being a new program, we don't really have an idea of how many people, A, are eligible, how many people, B, would take advantage of it, and what that would mean going forward, but a way to sort of look at that and get some even rough ideas on numbers of what the rest of the community is going to be sort of on the hook for to ensure that we do this.
My best guesstimate is that you're probably talking close to 175,000.
For this program?
No, to.
Or for
no,
the-
If you expanded the property tax relief program down to 65,
Okay.
let's say that, your benefit's about $750, and let's say of those 350 or so people, many of them might be married to each other. So let's say, I kind of backed into it that way to think that it could be up to that amount, because if you said 350 times 750, you're looking at about 240, 250K. But I think it's less than that, probably 175 on that program. On this one here, 65 versus 70. I don't know if you're going to be looking at a huge enrollment across the board as it is. A, because you've got the qualifying standard, and at 65, many people are still working. So they may fall out of that. I've also not seen, in 30 years of doing this, a lot of subscription into those programs. I think I can count on one hand the number of folks who I've seen who have enrolled either in the state program as it is. But it's a tool, so if there's someone who does need it, it's a really nice option to have. So they can maintain that stability of what their taxes are going to be, at least in the going forward, until they decide that they don't want to pay what that level was set at, or B, decide that they're just ready to move on. But I don't think you're looking at a huge liability on the out years.
My question was, how many if we move it down to 10 years?
There you go.
So what's your best guesstimate on how many would qualify if we moved it down to 10 years homestead instead of 20?
Some more, but probably a similar approach.
Okay.
Is what I would
Do we,
think.
because we have the for the other program, the 10-year, and just why 20 in this? Is that sort of like best practices statewide for other things, other, similar, or is that, where did that number?
Just put in there.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, you could do 10. 10's a nice number, and it would be consistent with the other program that's offered, so.
Yes.
I have another question, because I think that the financial is really important as well. So if we were to, would it be a total dumpster fire if we were to bring this, if it came out of council, or came out of ordinance, went to council, and then we revisit the impact of the 65 during budget season?
On the other program?
Yeah.
Yep.
Would that make sense? I think it would be good to get real answers on that. Not that I don't trust your guesstimates, but going into, I mean, because my other understanding is that all of these you have to apply for year over year, right? And that deadline's probably coming up, right? Or is it,
No, but we're
No.
done with the program for this year.
For this year,
Really, I
okay.
mean, if someone came in through the door tomorrow, we'd probably process it.
Yep.
But generally, the bulk was all done in August.
well, we've got some runway then,
Yep.
right? To
Oh, yes.
kind of look at the financials.
I'm, myself, I'm happy at 70 and 20 years, and let's get the program out there, and we can watch the metrics, we can talk about what the implications are if we go to 10 years, or if we go to 65, but I think to initiate the program, we should stick with.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I was just
Okay.
wondering if we could maybe also during budget season, look at the actual numbers for if we wanted to, as a later conversation, look at bringing it
Our new
down.
finance director, I'm sure, is going to be able to.
I bet our
Crank
new
that right
finance
out.
director is going to be so excited about it. Okay.
First thing on the docket.
Council Pilson, there is a significant amount of runway on that side of it.
Awesome.
Yes, we look at council can look at that from a budgetary perspective on the property tax relief program side of it, on funding that program, and we could look at that because ultimately you decide how much do you want to fund into that program, and then if you change that standard, then you can say, okay, it's not going to come around until the following summer anyways, so then it would just be a question of really a couple of mechanical tweaks to the existing ordinance, and it'd be age related at that
Yep.
point. So you could, it's really going from 70 to 65, and there you go. And then, so it's just a question at that point. So that's a quick amendment.
Cool.
Do we know, sort of on the number of people impacted, the 10-year versus a 20-year consecutive, like how difficult is that to figure out at all? I'm just like, without knowing real numbers behind it, just sort of my gut reaction is I would prefer more of the 10-year to keep in line with our other programs that are the similar vein of like, let's help people and all. And the 20-year seems a much larger hurdle to get past. But then I don't know of that population, what are we looking at in Cumberland of, there's going to be 4 people that would make the 10-year, wouldn't make the 20 kind of thing, or is it a much larger portion of the population that we're sort of cutting off? Or not offering this to, I should say.
Yeah, on that one, we'd probably have to dig into the assessor's records, just to look at date of ownership transfer, and just kind of, you could run a sort on that to figure out how many folks there are there. I mean, it's not a bad sort. I don't have that one off the top of my head, but as you go forward with this, I mean, again, neither one of these are a huge rush to do, because it's all, looking at the timeframes that you see in the ordinance for application periods, like July 1st and August 1st, so you've got some time there to look at it, but I can get that info and push that back too.
Mike, can you follow along?
He's been gone for a while.
He's been gone for a while.
Yeah, ever since we started this topic. I don't
Hi,
need it.
Mike. Oh, he texted. I'm
Did he
gonna
lose
lose
it?
connectivity.
You're breaking up.
New phone, who
It's probably
dis?
dinner
I'm
time.
going to lose connectivity
I
as
got
I
a deer in my
unplug.
headlights, I gotta take it now. I got a clean shot, I wanna get it now.
Honey, hold the Q beam.
Right. Cool. Good stuff. I haven't heard new phone tips in
So-
a long time.
He'd better come back if we're gonna move this forward.
Can you not second something?
Mr. Chairman, a lot of this tonight was just to get the initial conversation going for the committee.
No decision needed to be
Yes,
made.
you're good on that. It's just a question of getting the ball rolling, and then just kind of feeling the pulse of the ordinance committee. And then we can come back and work on some of that additional info to bring it back for the next time that you get together.
We got a couple minutes left then.
Do you want to talk about your solar?
My solar,
Your solar that you want to talk about?
our solar.
I have one other item if to update the ordinance committee on in advance of the 11:25 meeting. Remember the request for ordinance change on the VCC North? Not VCC, so basically the Route 1 North, yeah, this,
Residential stuff.
no, the school request,
Daycare,
the
daycare, yeah.
daycare and school up on
Right.
Route 1 in the old hub building.
Yeah.
I spoke with the main DOT about that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if someone goes in there and they want to, and they establish a school, that they could request to have a school zone put on Route 1, because they need to have 300 feet of run, and there's maybe 100 feet of that. Even if you name the road, it still puts it into play. They did have some concerns of wanting to put a school zone in a 50-mile-per-hour zone, because the the incompatibility between going from 50 to 15 is really strong. Yep. So,
It's more revenue for the cops.
yeah, so that'll be on, for the November 25th,
Be a
council
nonprofit.
meeting.
That school be a nonprofit?
They may be, but the property itself was gonna be taxable because they were a tax-paying entity where they are in Cape, but they were looking at, I thought they were K through 4, but Bridget indicated that she thinks it might be K through 12 that they're looking to do there, because there's a lot of square footage there, so. But ultimately, I know Council Reed's had some serious concerns about putting another school zone on, again, on Route 1.
Right.
But yeah, if they ever wanted to, they could ask for that, and they couldn't be, they have some issues with DOT, period, just because of the compatibility of that use with it, so.
Right.
There's no waivers or like exceptions or promise you won't ask
Pinky
for
promise.
a school zone,
Yeah.
like,
It's all in their favor, not ours.
Yeah, at that point, they would have that right, and the DOT may say, if you do have that, and you, they may say you may want, they may encourage that too, but they weren't really overly enthusiastic about the thought of it, about putting a school in a 50-mile-an-hour zone.
me neither.
So it was a request for a zone change, so if the council decides that, on the 25th, if you decide to take no action or say, yeah, we're not gonna do that, then that's a perfectly fine answer as well. But I wanted to because I know Ordinance Committee had talked about it a bit last month, when the request came in.
Yep.
Now, I can reach out to Council Reeds and let him know that as well, when he gets
Not gonna like that.
communications reestablished.
Yeah.
So we could do nothing, but they would still have their own recourse. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, they've made a request to the council to amend your ordinance to allow the use of a school in that zone.
Yep.
It's currently not,
It would
excuse me, it's
stop
currently not
zones,
allowed.
So they just wouldn't be able
So
to
it's
buy
like,
it.
well, no.
So they
that
just wouldn't
use.
be allowed to do it. Okay, sorry, I was trying
Yeah.
to understand if how the state has parameters around what we're allowed to enforce around solar, for example,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
I was trying to understand if there were any rules around.
Park advisory board?
Almost.
In
Oh, okay.
about 2 minutes.
You're good.
You can take a seat, though.
Yeah, anyway, sorry. I was just trying to understand if they had recourse as either a school or a nonprofit to be able to get a school in, but it sounds like they do not.
No, like any other zone change
Okay,
request,
cool.
council can decide to go with it, or council can say,
Okay.
I have
not so fast.
So where is this?
You've got
Where
30
are we going?
seconds.
this,
So there's tunnel.
Matt,
Almost, yeah.
as far as the definitions,
Warren Forsyth.
Where hub is, right there, I think. There were Dr. Green's offices here.
Okay.
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
So it'd be that building. Sorry.
all of this is good to go, like, our definitions are in here, like, where is this gonna go? Under what section of the ordinance?
I think it would, I'll have to ask Ben, but I think it would maybe just a standalone,
Okay, just
part
our
of it.
turf ordinance by
but I
itself.
can find out exactly where he'd wanna, where he'd recommend housing that.
Okay.
And
I
we-
just-
Might be
What is-
fit into an expanded chemical use ordinance or pesticides ordinance. It might be part of that at some point.
I mean, I don't wanna open that up to like, oh, well, we have a rubber that doesn't have any harmful chemicals in it.
Mhm.
No, it's still plastic, like, so I don't know.
Now, some of the
Some
questions that he
loopholes or
had
something.
were really well answered by
Okay.
your introduction. I only had the two questions I had to bring up to ask you for clarification, because
Yeah.
everything else is laid out so well in your,
Killer.
in your memo layout.
dissertation.
Yeah,
I'll keep
So-
trying to make it shorter for the 25th, because I know you were having a hard time.
I know, it was awesome, I think, because
I think that's
addressed
great.
a lot of those things.
Try,
You done good.
thank you.
But I'll find
Great
out,
job.
and
It only took a
and
year.
when you get to the 25th, I'll have that lined up to where Ben would recommend that needs to
I
have
would
a
be
home
happy
in
to
the
share a
ordinance.
cigar with you.
scarf. I appreciate the gesture, but.
Good, they're
gross.
$10 a piece. It was,
So-
You can have whiskey instead.
So we have two items coming out after tonight, so we have two motions that passed unanimously, so we've got those, we'll tee those up for the 25th, and so we're good on that, the housekeeping is done.
so
On those.
we will get the turf, not the turf, the solar on for
Next
a later
ordinance
date.
committee, yep, we'll be
Yeah,
good on that side of it.
And you saw the LCC recommendation to leave it as is, right?
I did not, but I was gonna leave it there anyways.
Because the main thing is, you know, we discussed like increasing height.
As a
And then,
setback.
but that's the compromise is the setback, but recommending it, just leaving it, then that basically means if Northeast Solar Trackers wants to put any more trackers in, they're stuck at being,
24.
I still think that the ordinance should specify manufacturer specified height, so that there's not a bunch of trackers just locked at flat position, like, makes no sense. So,
I think that's hard to do. I think you have to set the height. You know, this is the height. I don't care what you can do with it, with your flexible sliding pole or magic hydraulics, but this is the height that we are limited to.
Yeah,
I go back to the, you know, our car has a speedometer that goes to 120. The speed limit's 70. We all drive something that will exceed the speed limit.
yeah. I
So-
guess.
We'll-
I'm
we'll
gonna
ha-
get a 40-foot dinosaur and I'm gonna put it in the middle of my yard facing Main Street.
My dog freaks out on Wind Road. We go by, and there's the three skeletons there. You should see him. I mean,
Treats.
he wants to take it down.
Oh, no.
He
As
wants
you're
to feed
getting
wet.
closer,
You know-
treats.
You know,
Lots
if I
of-
let him out, he'd go down there and take it down.
Lots of treats.
I want a femur.
Well, get him where he's fine with it, and then lots of treats, inch forward a little bit, lots of treats until he's upset about it, then you bring him back a little bit, lots of treats, and you can get it eventually.
If you start to talk about herbicide and stuff, like, we absolutely need to have the town forester and the forestry subcommittee in to talk to everybody about that before it's thought of, because if we start banning glyphosate, we are going to lose our forests. That was the TLDR from Paul Larrabee, and that's a really, really serious thing. And other municipalities have not been thinking about the unintended consequences.
Falmouth?
Like Falmouth, of what is going to happen to their forests. Everything will be buckthorn and everything will be bittersweet, everything will be
Hotweed.
phragmites, and there goes our climate action plan.
I was not going to initiate that.
I know,
I
like,
was
but I-
just thinking that,
I thought, like, it sounds like a great idea, and then I was like, oh, great, like, let's ban, like, and then, but Paul was like, no, like,
Yeah, but you're not just taking your Roundup and spraying it, they're like diluting
oh,
it like
down
crazy.
to 2%.
Right.
Like,
Still not great, you still need protective
or
equipment.
I
but-
think like we could look into other things too, like fertilizer and the runoff into Casco Bay, like that.
Yeah.
That's stuff that we should be looking into, or the LCC is probably already looking into. But what are we doing on that level?
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all.
Thank you for like supporting me with this and letting me talk about it and give my spiel. I appreciate it.
You did a great job. There's no thanks necessary. You slayed it.
You sold us,
Well,
you know?
these visual aids really helped. I'm glad Jesse
Yes,
gave
that,
it to me.
that did, that
It's
really,
crazy.
I had no idea they just took that stuff and they poured it on the turf field.
Yeah.
I thought it was something that was underneath
Wild, right?
as a cushion, but it's,
It's
Infill.
just in it.
There's a
and
little,
then
there's a little pad.
when
but
you
it's like-
fall face down, it gets all in your face, gets up your nose. You know, you take
Yeah.
it with you in your shoes, you take it to your house.
yeah.
I've got
no.
a gym bag with a whole bunch of it in the bottom of it at my house.
Yeah.
You must have a few of those.
You might be able to tell it.
Yeah. It's an extra 5 pounds. It's like wrecking.
We could save money if everybody in the town just brings it back and dumps it.
God.